The Bryant family had been planning their road trip for months. It was meant to be a getaway from the stress of daily life, a time to bond and create memories. Chris, his wife, and their three kids, Sky, and the youngest, Chris Jr., piled into their SUV early one Saturday morning. The destination, a secluded cabin deep in the woods where cell signals were weak and the modern world was miles away. As the sun rose higher in the sky, the excitement in the car was palpable. The oldest, was quietly reading a book, trying to ignore his siblings. Sky had her headphones on, humming to her favorite tunes, while little Chris Jr. was glued to his tablet, occasionally babbling excitedly at the colorful screen. Chris and his wife exchanged smiles as the miles rolled by, the road stretching endlessly before them. But as the day wore on, things started to go wrong. The GPS signal began to flicker, directing them down an unfamiliar path. Chris frowned, but his wife reassured him, "It's probably just a shortcut." The road twisted and turned through dense forests, the trees growing taller and more oppressive. Soon, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the narrow road. The thick canopy of leaves blocked out what little light remained, leaving them in near darkness. Chris gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles white. "I think we should turn back," he suggested. But when he glanced in the rearview mirror, the road behind them had vanished into the blackness, as if it had never existed. "No signal," his wife whispered, her voice trembling as she held up her phone. The GPS was dead, and even the car's radio had stopped working. A thick fog began to roll in, swirling around the car, obscuring everything beyond a few feet. Sky took off her headphones, sensing the tension in the car. "Dad, where are we?" she asked, her voice cutting through the silence. "I don't know, sweetheart," Chris admitted, his voice steady but laced with unease. "But we're gonna be fine. We just need to keep going until we find somewhere safe to stop." But deep down, Chris wasn't so sure. The road had taken on an eerie quality, the pavement cracked and broken, as if it hadn't been used in years. Shadows danced at the edge of the fog, strange shapes that seemed to move with them, always just out of sight. Chris Jr. began to fuss, shifting restlessly in his car seat. "It's okay, buddy," Chris's wife said, trying to soothe him, though her own fear was evident. "We're going to find our way out of here." After what felt like hours, they saw a faint light in the distance. Relief flooded the car as they approached what appeared to be a small, run-down gas station. The lights flickered dimly, and a sign swung in the wind, its paint peeling and faded. Chris pulled into the parking lot and stopped the car, though every instinct told him not to. He glanced at his wife, who nodded nervously. "We need to ask for directions." They got out of the car, leaving the kids inside with the doors locked. The fog was thicker here, curling around their legs like cold fingers. As they approached the gas station, they noticed the windows were boarded up, and the door hung loosely on its hinges. "Hello?" Chris called out, his voice echoing in the stillness. No answer came, only the creak of the sign above them. They stepped inside, the door creaking loudly as it swung open. The interior was dark and musty, with shelves lined with dusty, forgotten items. An old man sat behind the counter, his back to them, hunched over as if he hadn't moved in years. "Excuse me," Chris said cautiously. "We're lost. Can you help us?" The old man didn't respond. Chris exchanged a glance with his wife, who looked as terrified as he felt. He stepped closer, reaching out to tap the man on the shoulder. But when his hand made contact, the man's head snapped around, revealing hollow, sunken eyes and a twisted grin. "You shouldn't have come here," he rasped, his voice dry and crackling like dead leaves. Chris stumbled back, pulling his wife with him. We're leaving," he stammered, turning to flee. But when they reached the door, it wouldn't budge. They pushed and pulled, but it was as if the door was glued shut. The old man's laughter echoed in the tiny space, growing louder and more maniacal. Suddenly, the fog outside pressed against the windows, swirling faster and faster until it burst through the cracks, filling the room with an icy chill. The old man's laughter turned into a deafening roar as the fog enveloped them, blinding them to everything but each other. Chris held his wife close, fear gripping him like a vice. "We have to get back to the kids," he shouted over the noise, but his voice was swallowed by the fog. When the fog finally receded, the gas station was gone. Chris and his wife stood alone on the road, the car and their children nowhere to be seen. The road stretched endlessly before them, but now it was different. darker, more sinister. They ran down the road, calling out for their children, their voices echoing into the emptiness. But no answer came, only the sound of the wind through the trees, carrying with it a faint, chilling whisper. You should have never come here. And as they ran, the road continued to stretch on, leading them deeper into the darkness, with no end in sight. They had entered a place beyond the reach of the living, where lost souls wandered endlessly on the road to nowhere. And the Bryant family would never be seen again.